Frogs and toads that live in the desert. Amphibians seem unlikely creatures to live in the desert, but those living in dry climates show some unusual adaptations to live in such extreme environments. Scientists have begun to examine the physiology of these animals to better understand how they survive. You should remember that physiology refers to how organisms function or how things work in animals. With their moist skin and aquatic lifestyle, frogs and toads seem better suited to life near bodies of water. Yet, these creatures are found in arid regions throughout the world, from the Sonoran Desert in the southwest U.S. to African savannas. To survive in such climates, these animals have developed behavioral and physiological mechanisms that allow them to conserve water and remain cool. Scientists have changed the way they think about anurans. Anurans live in arid regions or arid environments. Get this in your notes. Anuran is any tailless, stout-bodied amphibian with long hind limbs for leaping and includes frogs and toads. The study of desert-dwelling amphibians has offered insights into the diversity of these animals. You should know that amphibians were the first vertebrates to move out of water onto land 300 million years ago, yet most of them still need to remain close to sources of fresh water. There are 3 modern amphibians. 1, salamanders, 2, anurans, and 3, caecilians. Caecilians are legless, worm-like amphibians that live underground. They are not worms, and they are not snakes. You see, snakes have scales and a tail. Caecilians do not. Caecilians have a skull and a backbone, but worms do not. All right, getting back to anurans. Scientists use 2 characteristics to divide the order of anurans. Those with warty skin are called toads. Those with smooth skin that live in and around water are called frogs. Most amphibians lay their eggs in water and have larvae that lead a fish-like existence in water until they undergo metamorphosis. Once equipped with legs and lungs, they spend at least part of their life on land. Metamorphosis means profound change in body form from one stage to the next in the life of an animal. Most amphibians live near fresh water or areas of high humidity and rainfall. However, a few anurans live in arid regions, making it difficult to survive. You see, these animals that live in these arid regions usually have skin to protect them from drying out. Reptiles, birds, and mammals have an outer layer of skin or shell that protects them. The outer layer of skin is called the stratum corneum. The stratum corneum is composed of several layers of dead cells. This outer layer prevents water loss. Amphibians, on the other hand, only have one layer. Their skin is permeable. Permeable means to allow things to travel back and forth through it. There are 2 advantages to permeable skin. 1, animals like frogs with permeable skin can absorb water through their skin rather than have to drink water. 2, oxygen and carbon dioxide can pass through the skin. For example, lungless salamanders, those are salamanders that lack lungs, breathe entirely through their skin. Frogs and toads use other adaptations to survive in deserts and dry environments. An adaptation is adjusting or changing the way an animal survives to fit in the environment in which they live. Frogs and toads use 5 adaptations to survive. 1, they stay near what little water is available. 2, they clump together in large groups. 3, they store waste in their body. 4, they bury themselves underground. And 5, they cover themselves with waxes or other substances. Perhaps the best adaptation is to stay near what little water is available. So frogs and toads stay near wet seeps and springs. The California tree frog, found in deserts, does just that. It seeks out and searches small seeps and spots of water during dry times. This frog also clumps with other California tree frogs in large groups during the hottest time of the day. Scientists think that clumping decreases the amount of water lost by any one individual frog. Another way to conserve water is through waste products. Frogs and toads differ from birds and reptiles in the way they excrete waste. Birds and reptiles excrete waste as a solid form, and little water is lost, or they conserve water by creating urine that has a high concentration of waste. In frogs and toads, when water is not available, these animals can stop producing urine or store waste as diluted urine. When frogs and toads lose water through evaporation, water from the urine is recycled back into the body. Another way to conserve water for a frog or a toad is to burrow or bury itself underground. Another way to conserve water for a frog or a toad is to burrow or bury itself underground. Frogs and toads that burrow can keep cool because of the cooler ground temperatures and can absorb water from moisture in the soil. Some frogs and toads do this on a short-term basis, whereas others can bury themselves in soil and survive up to 2 years without water. For frogs and toads that burrow underground, they can remain there for some time, and falling raindrops will often bring them out of their burrows so they can replenish themselves in bodies of water. Scientists found that just getting the ground wet with water was not enough to get the toad to emerge. Yet when they placed a piece of plastic on the ground above the burrow and sprinkled water on it, the toads emerged. As the spadefoot toads emerged from their burrows, they found that the sound of rain was what triggered them to come out. Once out, they headed for water and usually stayed there for about 24 hours, just long enough to mate and lay eggs. Then they left and sometimes traveled back to their burrows. Still another toad, called Budget's frog of Paraguay, lives in temporary ponds. In times of drought, it makes 2 critical adaptations to survive. 1, when the pond dries up, it burrows under the dried pond. And 2, once in the dirt, it forms a cocoon around its body to prevent further water loss. So the last adaptation is that frogs or toads cover themselves with either a cocoon or other substances. For Budget's frog, the cocoon prevents water loss. While most frogs shed the outer layer of skin, Budget's frog keeps the outer layer of skin and continues to form additional layers every 24 hours until the cocoon is fully formed. Once the cocoon gets wet, the frog will use its hind legs to roll up the cocoon from the rear of its body and then eats it. Another frog, the waxy monkey frog, lives high in trees and dry environments. This tree frog excretes a waxy substance from its glands in its skin and covers its body to prevent water loss from evaporation. It uses each foot to wipe its entire body with the waxy substance. Once covered, all water that falls from rain beads up and rolls off its body. In fact, this frog drinks water as it rolls off its body. This is the only frog that is known to drink water. As you have seen, frogs and toads use multiple adaptations to survive. However, in the past few decades, populations of frogs and toads have been on the decline, and in some cases went extinct. Their loss has been mostly because of habitat destruction by humans. To prevent further declines, scientists need to better understand the physiology of frogs and toads to save these anurans. This ends your lecture.